Okay. We're live. We're live. Okay. Hello, everyone, and good afternoon again. Welcome to the Ringer Plus Show live, our special segment Ask the Expert Anything. And this week, again, for some reason, Roshan, you're here every week now. How are you doing, man?
I'm doing well, man. I'm doing well. I trust it will come to an end. Don't worry. I'm sure my reign of terror on Ringgit Plus's life will come to an end soon enough.
Yeah, and then the producers will be like, "Yeah, everyone seems to like you a lot, so we're gonna have to keep having you in this show." It's okay, it's okay. That's just a joke, guys. Welcome to the show again, Roshan. We will definitely have the other CFPs around. Don't worry. But Roshan, this week we are going to be talking about a relatively new fintech phenomenon, right? Like it's been around for the best part of this year, and when it first launched, right, buy now pay later platforms. I would say schemes, honestly.
Services, facilities,
Yeah, services.
whatever word you want to use.
Yeah, so buy now pay later has was a pretty big deal when it came out earlier this year. But for some reason, there was a lot of negativity surrounding this service. And we're gonna delve a little bit into this. What are the pros and cons? Why does it have so much? Has it been getting a lot of flack? But at the same time, there's been a lot of players in this space in the last year alone, from just like two or three at first, and now we've got like almost triple that amount now, right? And lastly, of course, like we will also talk, like if you're going to be using buy now pay later, what are the kind of uh, tips and tricks, maybe so to say, that you can use as a consumer to kind of maximize this service, right? So Roshan, like let's start from the start, right? Like what exactly is a buy now pay later service?
Right. So buy now, pay later. Let's I've got a little poll I want to ask everyone because I did ask this on Twitter. And essentially,
Yep.
while we wait for some response as to whether you use buy now pay later and why not, BNPL essentially is short-term financing, right? It's as the name suggests, you buy now and you pay later. So it's gotten a lot of attention recently by some social media posts and things like that. But like all consumer credit, um, you got to be responsible. It's something that you can use as a tool, but if you're complacent or irresponsible with it, it can be highly, highly dangerous.
Yeah,
I think
just
we've
like
got,
your other financial products, right?
yes,
How you
for
use it is
sure.
very important, isn't it?
Yeah, but of course, with consumer credit like credit cards or BNPL, the slippery slope is a lot more because it's so easy to use and so flexible. And
Yeah.
for something like credit cards can be potentially very, very expensive. So let's just jump over to. So I asked Twitter a few days ago, I think it was 2 nights ago, and I gave people 24 hours to respond. 430 people voted on this, and you can see
Nice.
there's a little bit of like a negativity towards BNPL, right?
Yeah.
12% said yes, they would use BNPL, but depending on the fees, which is the smart way to do it. Um, 18% said yes, but for select expenses, also great way to go about it. So that's roughly 30% of respondents. 70% said they didn't want to use it. 49% said no, flat out no, and 20% said no, they prefer credit cards. So very, very interesting kind of uh, angles that we're getting here. And actually,
Yeah.
we'll talk about credit cards in a bit as well, Pang.
Yep. Hey, it does sound like there's a lot of negativity, probably because maybe there's a lot of it's a relatively new service. Not a lot
Mm-hmm,
of people are
mm-hmm.
more familiar with it,
Right.
right? So let's kind of drill it down. Like there's a lot of players these days. Let's have a quick introduction of what exactly is BNPL, right? Like
Sure.
you said, it's a
So
short-term financing. You said, yeah.
yes, yes. Typically 3 to 4 months. Some players do up to 6 months, which is already one of the differences with credit cards. But we'll get to that in a second. As the name suggests, it allows consumers to buy now, pay later via installments. Some players allow you to pay at the end of the month instead of breaking up into installments. So again, like a little bit of like a credit card situation. Based on the stuff that I looked up online, credit limits typically are between 1,000 ringgit and 3,000 ringgit so far that I've looked
Yeah.
up. But there are some like pro features or BNPL Plus that allows you up to 10,000 ringgit,
Oh, that's a
depending
lot.
on other. Yeah, it's a lot of money. But it depends on terms and conditions, right? One typical condition is that you must link to a credit card and
Yeah.
more KYC, right? More know your customer, so you have to put more information in. And the last one here is typically linked to a debit or credit card. And I've noticed that if you link a credit card, you get a higher credit limit on some platforms. And I think that's basically because credit cards got a certain level of credit checks, right? As opposed to a debit card, which is just a bank account, you get a card from that. So they're piggybacking off the KYC from the bank side, which differs from debit to credit depending on it. And ultimately, when you take a look at this, it's easy to criticize it for being for allowing short-term gratification and all of that, but essentially it's just a financial tool, right? And
Yeah.
like credit cards and other credit instruments, it's essential to be responsible with it. And I always hear this actually from other FPs as well, and it's just another instrument. Be responsible, because if you're not responsible, if you're irresponsible with it, it can cause some serious problems for you later
Down
on.
the line. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay.
So that's the essential, I guess, and some of the players
Yeah.
here.
Yeah, on the right, you see like there's like quite a few of the famous names: pay later, pay later, pay later. There really are. I mean, we forget one more. I think there are quite a few other players in the market. I think, right? There's like Fave and there's Pace as well. So I mean, it gives you an idea that in the last year alone, like these are all these numbers has been growing up. The numbers for the number of pay later services
Yeah.
have actually been coming up. So it doesn't look like it's something that is a temporary thing. It's one of a new service at the same time. But like we've been talking a lot about this. There are a lot of similarities between pay later services and, for example, an easy payment plan from a credit card, right? So you want to just run through like what are the differences here?
Yeah. So I think from a principal standpoint, they're both essentially consumer credit, right? But there are very key differences between the both. One, obviously, is the barrier to entry. Credit cards, even if it is easy for some people, are largely inaccessible to a lot of people, right? And
Right.
because there's a higher barrier to entry. For BNPL, what I found online, for the most part, is that no credit checks for now, but you need to be 18 years old, be a Malaysian citizen, and have a credit or debit card issued by a Malaysian financial institution, as well as a mobile number or email address. Relatively low barrier to entry there, right? And then typically you can stretch payments out or split them between 3 to 4 months instead of the 6 to 12 months that you see the credit card installment plans allow, right? So I just paid, actually, my car had some problems. I had to repair it. And I just did a 12-month installment plan for that because it was 3,000 ringgit, which
Oh,
really hurt
that's a
me.
lot. Yeah.
But that's why it's important to have a car repair fund on the side. But anyway, that's maybe a topic for another day. But essentially, so typically the credit card installment plans are 6 to 12 months and beyond, right? Some of them do longer plans there. Now
18,
the key,
24. Yeah.
yeah, there are much longer plans. Now, of course, you have to watch out for fees as well in the credit card part
Hmm.
for the longer ones, right? Now, the key difference between BNPL and credit cards is, of course, the interest factor. BNPL is loudly shouting for the most part that there's 0% interest, and they
Right.
only charge you if you miss a payment, right? So if you say you agree to 3 payments and you miss that payment date, they'll charge you a fee for that or a penalty or something like that. Have to look into that. Credit cards, however, let's say you want to pay something over 3 or 4 months, and you say, hey, I'm going to pay something with my credit card and just pay the minimum balance over the next few months. That is a very expensive form of debt to take on.
Yeah.
Effectively, you're paying 18% per annum on the balance that you're carrying. So be um, be mindful of that. In that kind of situation, it might be more suitable to look at a BNPL player that gives you a feature for 3 to 4 months. Because credit card players, I think nothing less than 6 months at this point. Another key thing to
Yes.
watch out for: BNPL not regulated by Bank Negara Malaysia or any other regulators for now. So something to just keep an eye on in
So wait,
general.
yeah. So I mean, I know you mentioned this. We haven't really talked about this regulation part, but so where do BNPL people get their licenses then?
Right. So it's quite an interesting situation, right? If I'm not mistaken, it's because there's a money lending license under the Home Ministry, the Housing Ministry. So that seems to be where a lot of them are getting their licensing from.
Right.
Maybe that will change, maybe that won't. But that's typically where the. Also, it's because it's technically considered a factoring agreement. So it's a very technical thing, Pang. And we can really fall into the weeds there if we get too deep into it. Because
Hmm.
yeah,
Hmm.
I'm not going to. I can already feel myself going down this rabbit hole. I'm not going to go
Okay,
into the
okay. So in
technicalities of it.
general, they do have a money lending license, and there
Mm.
are some form of regulation, but it's just not done by. It's not overseen by Bank Negara, so to say,
See,
or is
it's a
there
bit
other
of
things as
that's the thing. That's the thing. It's a very gray space right now. It's largely unregulated globally, and in Malaysia, it does not come under the Bank Negara Malaysia, and because it falls under what is known as a factoring agreement,
well? Right.
and it's because of the background merchant. So again, we could go into the weeds, but essentially, it's because the merchant is taking a discount. Okay, never mind. I'm not going to really go too deep there.
Okay,
But
okay. One
as,
day
as
we will
for
probably
you,
go a little bit closer.
for you, effectively as a consumer,
Yep.
it impacts the way that if anything happens, if you have a complaint to lodge, who do you go to, that sort of thing, right? Because BNM is generally quite strict about a lot of things. And I
Yep.
remember a few years ago when a lot of shops were charging you that 2% if you wanted
Mm-hmm.
to use a
Yep.
credit card facility, BNM clamped down on that, right? So it's something they do watch out for. The merchant has to take on that fee. So yeah, it's a bit of a technical area.
Right. So for now, it is just something to keep in mind. But with there are a lot of genuinely big players in the BNPL space as well. So they do give some form of reassurance. They're very transparent. I think from some of the research that I've done, um, they're very transparent in terms of like the fees that they're charging. What are the penalty charges that they give as well. And like you said, for the most part, like all of them are shouting this 0%
Yeah,
interest, right?
and
And
they are
then over
being
a shorter period of time.
yeah, and they are. I think now because they're under more scrutiny, a lot of them are being even more transparent, and
Right.
because
That's
they're
that's
not
good, right?
they're yeah that is very good, and because from a business model level, their intention is not to make money off the consumer. I mean that's a plus if the fees come in, but what they want is they're making money from the merchant side, right? Because the merchants use their services, and then people start using that particular service a lot,
Right.
then they make
Right.
a cut of that, right? Similar to what credit cards do as well. But credit cards also charge the merchant, but also if you pay your bills regularly, on time, in full, you don't pay interest on it. But if you carry a balance, you pay interest on it and all that jazz.
Hmm. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So
Oh,
there's some similarities and some
quiz time.
uh quiz time. Okay, so I mean, just to go back, like there's some similarities with credit card installment plans, but at the same time there are some smaller differences that are not really consumer facing. So that's for now it doesn't quite affect you or me as a consumer, right? Okay, cool. So let's go to the quiz. So for everyone, sorry, I didn't really mention this earlier, but from last week we started giving out some freebies
Financial
for everyone who's
education.
watching.
We're
Wow.
giving it away.
Yeah, so we are giving away 3 seats to our Ringer Plus Academy workshop, which is a 7-hour financial management workshop, right? Wow, why is my face so big? Anyway, yeah, we're giving away 3 seats for our Rigo Plus Academy, which is usually a 700 ringgit course, which is a 3.5 hour workshops split between the two. And I think I think Roshan is he went offline, so his slide went away as well. So we're giving away 3 seats, but I think I will wait for Roshan to come back online. And Roshan's online again. Yes, Maxis, is it internet
No,
problem?
my browser crashed. So
Okay,
it's not an internet problem. It was a browser issue.
it's a browser issue.
Let me
Ugh,
let me
always
just
a problem.
share that out again.
Sure, no
Let's
problem.
see. Share screen. Quiz time. Fantastic.
Yep. So as we mentioned earlier, we're giving away 3 seats for now. The first 3 correct answers. Wow, your browser is.
Is it flickering on your end as well?
Yeah.
There we go.
Okay. We'll go to the next slide. The first 3 answers, correct answers. We're giving 15 seconds. Let's go straight to the question. Sorry. BNPL players in Malaysia typically provide a credit limit over 4,000 ringgit. Is it true or false? The answer was given in the slide earlier. A, true. B, false.
Watch out for the wording, guys.
Yeah, drop your answers in the comment section below. The first 3 correct answers, we will be contacting you and providing you a free seat to Ringer Plus Academy. We're waiting for our producers now. Uh, well, there's a lot of answers now. That's good. That's good. Okay.
Oh man, but okay, I'm not gonna say anything. I shouldn't say anything.
Okay. Okay. So I think we've got our amount of answers here already. We've got three of them. Yep. Producers said we can stop. Okay. Cool. So the next part that I really want to talk about when it comes to buy now pay later.
So yeah, so credit limit. Okay, maybe we were a bit too tricky with this question because, as I mentioned earlier, typically it's 1 to 3,000 ringgit in terms of the credit limit.
Mhm.
So I think only one person got this right. So don't worry, we got another quiz at the end for you to win those tickets again. So stick around for that. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah,
Cool.
so I think from a previous slide, like in general, they do give a pretty low limit for about 1 to 3,000 ringgit. There are some, like you said, the pro level ones, the higher ones that have a more visibility over your credit history. For example, if you use Grab a lot, if you use Shopee a lot, they do dynamically increase your credit limits. And I think I just checked mine yesterday when we were doing this research. They upgraded my Shopee Pay Later to like 6,000 ringgit. So I don't even use Pay Later, but
Actually,
because of
we'll
spending
definitely talk
patterns and
about
stuff,
that.
right? Yeah,
Yeah.
which is I guess in that sense, they are trying to give some form of convenience, and increasing the limit means there's just more things that gives you that flexibility to use
I
it
guess
for,
it also
right?
whether you're a pessimist or an optimist, right? Because the pessimists are looking at it and say, "Why are you trying to trap people?" Whereas the optimists are saying, "Oh, it's just it's behavioral analysis, and they know I can afford to pay this back.
Yeah.
Again, just be responsible."
Yeah, so I think that's the key things here. But Roshan, I think it's also time that we talk about, like, what are the things that we need to look out for when it comes to using BNPL services, right? I think you have your slides. Or is it hanging?
How to responsibly use it? Can you not see it?
No, it's not. Oh yeah, there you are. Oh, this is the next slide after the quiz, right?
Yes, correct.
Okay, cool. Yeah, so I mean, there are a few things that when it comes to using BNPL services, you mentioned that earlier, but again, important to reiterate. Go for it,
Yeah.
Roshan.
So these are great points, right? So with any credit tool, you need to understand it, right? Don't simply use credit because you have access to it. So number one, sorry, excuse me. Number one, you got to understand the charges. How are they going to charge you? Is it really 0% interest? Watch out for that. Look into the comments. I guess they're all promoting this, but maybe some players may have interest on your late payment amount. These are things you got to watch out for. Watch out for late payment fees, admin fees, all those sort of things. Number two, a credit limit is not your money. Very important, Pang. You got that 6,000 ringgit credit limit from Shopee. It's not your money. It's not yours.
It's not.
When you are,
Yes.
yeah, and when you are using it, you're essentially borrowing against the future. Again, powerful tool, but dangerous if mishandled. Number three, the big one here, obviously, you have that credit limit, you want to use it, you understand your charges. Do you know your monthly budget? Do you understand it? Do you know that if you spend this amount, you are going to be able to pay it back? That sort of thing. So that's where point three and four are linked. Do you know how much surplus cash you have? That is important to have because let's say, for example, my car example, right? Let's say I didn't want to pay that the 3,000 ringgit at one go, and I use the BNPL player to split it over 3 months. Do I have the 1,000 ringgit surplus every month for my salary, or do I already have those funds set aside? I just don't want to pay it at one go, right? I just want to maybe I have the money in a money market fund. I'd rather use that and let it continue to accrue as an interest and pay it down slowly, right? So again, there's an awareness over my financial situation and my monthly budget. Typically, what I like telling people is if you don't have a budget yet, a great way to start is income minus savings equals expenses. So you're already investing and saving one side, right? And then you can use
Yeah.
the rest to kind of ballpark with that and play with it as your expenses. Don't spend unless you know how you're going to repay it. Very, very, very important. Don't YOLO it and then expect to be able to repay it no matter what, right? It's very
Yeah.
important that you understand your surplus, that so that you can pay it off. Typically, using it for big expenses, big ticket purchases is a good way of utilizing it as long as you can afford to pay back because splitting those payments can help optimize your cash flow, right? So you could split the payments and invest the rest as opposed to putting all that money into this purchase,
Yeah.
especially because it's 0% interest. That's the key part here, right? Alternatively, it's a great way another good use is that for health or emergencies because of the lower barrier to entry, especially if something happens and you don't have an emergency buffer fund. While it's not ever great to be borrowing and not sure how to pay it back. If it's an emergency, right? Ideally, you'd have a buffer fund, but if you don't, health and emergencies, BNPL can help you at least optimize that cash flow. Generally, I think avoiding consumer goods is a good place to start. But again, if you're responsible and all of that, all the power to you.
Yeah.
Don't fall for the marketing pump. I'm talking to you now. 6,000 ringgit credit limit they gave you. I have seen online actually that they have put like a limited time, right? They say, oh, credit limit for a limited time. This is how
Oh,
marketers
really?
try and get you a lot. Yeah, yeah,
Okay.
I saw the screenshot going around, essentially encouraging you to spend that credit limit. That marketers are always going to encourage you to spend, right? They're always going to try and trigger you to do it. You have to,
Right.
unfortunately, this is the way it is, right?
I mean,
Don't fall for
you're
it.
you're right, right? Like initial part of a new product usually involves a lot of aggressive campaigns and marketing efforts to try and get you into using it and enjoying the convenience of the service, and then from there, the benefits kind of go down over time. There's less campaign spending. There's less marketing spending, and then from there you're like, oh wait, I've used this so much, I'm so used to it already, right? Like e-wallets. Uh,
Oh yeah, for sure.
which is
Uh,
like you said, like behavioral analysis, and they're doing this just to kind of get more and more people on board. But you're right, like in essence, the most important thing to remember is always that a credit limit is not your money. It is
yeah,
borrowed money against, like, future repayments. So if you cannot afford to pay it, it doesn't matter if it's a credit card, it doesn't matter if it's a BNPL, it is still not your money. And it's very important to remember that little bit.
yeah. Ultimately, spend responsibly, right? Be aware of the fees and the charges involved, and be aware of your budget.
Yeah.
I think I mentioned this last week as well. I like installment plans, 0% installment plans, because I'd rather break up big payments over time,
Yeah.
and leave the rest of the money in a money market fund or Amana Saham, where you're making some. Yes, it's not going to be inflation, but you're still earning something a little bit there, and or using it from your surplus or whatever. Just yeah.
There's always, I
Um,
mean, one of the things that we can also look into is the fact that there's always some buffer in the event there's an emergency. You have, some cash on hand rather
yeah.
than everything spent out, even if you can afford to pay for it
Correct.
upfront, right?
Yeah.
Cool.
For sure.
Okay. Yes, this
And
is
of
the
course,
one I
you
was
gotta look
talking
at the other
about. I know
side.
there's a lot of
Yeah.
things. With BNPLs, some of the things that we need to look out for. I think it's pretty much similar to, it's the things that you need to look out for when you're thinking about using an easy payment plan, for example, right? So you want to run us through this one, Roshan?
Sure. So here are a few red flags, and the first few are on you, and then the other few are like to watch out for the players themselves, right? So number one, if you're already using over 75% of your credit card limit, may not be a great idea to also use BNPL, right? Because now you're doubling up, and that could be
Yeah,
very
it's
dangerous
another
for you.
credit line that you can then take advantage of, and kind of it's just like, yeah,
Correct. And if you're using below regularly using above 75% of your credit limit, that's already showing a high dependence on credit, right? Unless you are again, you're maximizing your credit, you're using it for the points, that sort of thing. Even then, you shouldn't be using 100% of your credit limit, right? Generally speaking, it's just a bit concerning behavior overall.
yeah. I mean,
Uh,
for just a little bit of background for when it comes to credit utilization as well, I think that the general rule is to not go over 30% of your credit limit. That's for good credit health,
oh,
good
okay, cool.
practice. Yeah.
Yeah, and the other thing is, if you're already spending most of your take-home pay on a monthly basis, then you also need to watch out for, right? Because you're already highly not leveraged, but you are working with a tiny, if not no surplus. And the key here is take-home pay. Do not be using your gross income here to do this measurement, right? Because cash flow is cash flow, and you got to watch out for that. Avoid it if you have a history of impulsive purchases. This
We were
this
talking
requires
to
some
our producer
honesty.
about this one, right?
Yeah, yeah. This requires some honesty on your part as well. right? We're asking for transparency from them. Well, we we gotta be transparent with ourselves as well. Avoid if you're already settling. If you're not settling your outstanding credit card balance each month, it's already showing uh, not ideal behavior in terms of credit,
Hmm.
and you're already paying quite an expensive interest on that if you're carrying that balance forward. So you got to watch out for that. On the other side, you want to watch out for hidden fees, interest rates, other conditions. Again, you got to understand the credit tool you're using before you use it. Don't just use it because it's new and they've given you a credit limit and that sort of thing, right? Make sure you understand it. And a lot of them, you just email them over and ask them upfront whether there's 0% interest and that sort of thing. They're also going to be very careful, right?
Yeah.
What if there are extra fees, right? Like the pro features may have extra fees. Ask the questions like what happens if you miss payments. Um, I've seen some people reporting, not reporting, but talking about how they're noticing that different marketplaces have different pricing depending on whether you use a BNPL thing, because it could be that the merchants are trying to offset the cost of
Right.
using that facility.
Hmm.
Make sure you compare prices as well, because you don't want to end up using because if you end up using the facility but you're being charged higher, you're effectively paying a certain level,
Paying
a
for
certain
that
fee.
service. Yeah,
Yeah, you
that's
are.
true.
So just some things to generally watch out for. And again, marketing campaigns and temporary promos, right? Marketers are going to try and rush you. They're going to try and catch you in this whole FOMO state, that fear of missing out, that, oh, if I don't spend this, I'll never get it ever again. That's generally what people who are trying to get your money want you to feel, right? They try to use this scarcity mentality.
Yeah.
And it's a psychological thing that you makes that gives you the illusion of a time pressure, and you'd rather use it than not use it. And of course, watch out for that sudden increase in your credit limit for limited time, right? It's again, you have to understand why they gave it that credit limit, right?
That's true.
That increase in credit limit. It's important to understand it and not just simply spend it because you have. Even if they do give you a good increase in credit limit, and you are uh, and you understand why they gave it to you. You have to understand your budget. Go back to the key things we talked about earlier. Because if you don't understand your budget and you're not sure whether you're going to have a surplus next month or you don't have enough savings to cover the cost of that purchase, chances are it's a bit of a slippery slope.
That's true. As with any credit tool.
As with any credit tool, I think the biggest, not culprits, but the biggest things to always watch out for are, well, BNPL will be one of them, but credit cards. Very, very prone for people. I've heard people get into massive credit card debt because they don't pay off the
Yes.
balance and their compounds and all of that. Also, car purchases, right? People buy big cars, expensive cars, and go over 7 years, not realizing that it's actually a really expensive form of credit, even if it's just 3 or 4% at the start, because you're always paying that interest on the
On
initial
the
amount you
Yeah.
borrowed. So at 7 years, if you've only got like 10,000 ringgit left on that in the principal, you
Yeah.
could be paying a lot more effective interest on that. So just watch out,
That's a good point. That's a good point. Okay, so I think we're gonna wrap it up right here.
Yep. This is the last one, essentially. Again, guys, BNPL is just another form of consumer credit that, if misused by consumers, can potentially lead to financial mistakes and debt traps. If used responsibly, I hope I don't sound too much like a overbearing adult. But anyway, BNPL can help consumers that don't have access to or don't want credit cards, right? Helps them manage their cash flow by splitting payments. This is possible. And in fact, because it's 0% interest, barring late payment fees and potentially hidden costs, if any, it can be a cheaper form of credit than credit cards, as carrying a balance on a credit card is one of the most expensive forms of credit, 18% per annum if you're carrying a
Yep.
balance on that. Um, Credit cards do have 0% installment plans, but generally for bigger ticket items, and 10 years of 6 to 12 to 24 months sometimes. So for the shorter term purchases, if you want to pay over installments, BNPL occupies that space, right? As opposed to carrying a balance on a credit card.
Cool.
Yeah,
That's again, very sound advice. I know you sound like a experienced, wizened man who has seen it all, Roshan.
I hope people
But
don't
but
like they're looking at me and not seeing Gandalf, like like.
it's okay.
Is
It's
that an
okay.
old
But
people reference now? Is all the rings that old people reference?
I hope not. I really hope not. It's been 20 years since the movies, and many decades since the books. But
Oh man,
it's very close to my heart. So let's not say it's old. It's timeless.
timeless. Yes, yes, it is. In fact, I just watched the extended edition like 2 or 3 weeks ago, and it was fantastic. Yeah,
We
actually,
should have
Bang,
more. We should talk more
I
about
just
this
want
one.
to. Actually, we can address this in the Q and A. I forgot. We do have
Yes,
Q and A after this.
yes, we do have a Q and A after this, but
But
we are giving
before
away
that,
two more seats. I know the last question was a bit tricky. Our producer says saying that many answers, but not many were correct. So we are giving away another two seats for Ringgit Plus Academy. These are 700 ringgit, in RRP. So these are actually pretty useful. 3.5 hours, two sessions. They are genuinely useful. I've sat through two sessions. I'm not sure why, but I sat through two sessions, and they teach you a lot of things,
to
especially
absorb
if
the knowledge, Pang. That's why you said too specific. That it was that good. It was that good.
it's pretty solid. To be honest, you get to go through a lot of budgeting techniques as well. But I think the ones that really was quite interesting for me was when it comes to approaching investments, they gave you some
Mm.
ideas. They give some recommended funds based on their curation. They are meaning Roshan, Han, Azrael, as well as Priscilla. They all have their own sessions, so it's really really solid. And if you can go for it, get enjoy them for free. Why not, right? So let's go for the questions. Next
Ready or not?
question.
That's that's
Ready or
that's
not?
the key
15
question.
seconds, right?
I'm going to
15
count down from
seconds.
three, and then you go what? 15 seconds. The first two to answer, or
First
something
two
like that.
only.
All
Okay,
right.
let's
I'm going
go.
to 3, 2, 1.
Use BNPL if you've already utilized over 75% of your credit card limit. True or false? A, true. B,
Ding
false.
ding
I mean,
ding.
yeah, this sounds logical, right? If you've already finished up your credit card limit, why not use BNPL, right? Stretch those payments even further.
I have no comment on the matter.
I don't know. To me, I feel like I think someone did make a comparison before in the past that credit cards and all these credit facilities, they are you know like fire, right? They can be useful when you're doing it, when you use it right, but they can
It's a
also
great
burn you
analogy.
if you don't, right? So
Yeah, I mean, think about it, right? Yeah, exactly. It's like you who's going to buy a house in cash? That's why we use mortgages
exactly,
to buy houses. And yes, we do pay interest, but with a mortgage, actually, mortgage is probably one of the best forms of credit, right? In the sense that helps you buy a very big asset and it's
asset,
paid down over time, right?
and it
Um,
creates value as well, right? The
and
the
it creates
the asset
value.
increases in value.
Property is, of course, a very illiquid asset. But if you're buying to live in it,
Yeah.
it can be very, very valuable for you, right? Um, Cars are actually, I don't know whether they're a need now, considering the fact that we've got car sharing and ride hailing, and a lot of people are working from home, but they used to be an essential item, right? And
Hmm.
some cars cost a lot of money. Even, let's say you're looking at an Arxia or something like that, it's like 30, 40,000 ringgit.
Correct.
Who's going to put out that money up front? You could use a loan to cover that over time, 3 to 5 years. I think is typical recommended tenure, and then invest the rest. Right, that's always the key. I think I keep reiterating when you're splitting payments, invest the rest. But yes, I think we've got our answers and more. Pang,
Yes. Yes. We've been told that we talk too much. Anyway,
we talked so much.
so the answer is, of course, false. 75% of credit limit utilization is an indication that you may be using too much. Leveraging too much of your credit, and taking out more may not be a good idea. But again, just end of the day, be responsible and understand your finances and your budgets. Should be fine, right?
Correct.
And
Yep.
with that, I think we will go to our Q&A sessions. We've been told that there's a lot of questions, so we're just going to run through them quickly. Roshan, question
Fantastic.
number one. Credit cards essentially depend on consumers paying the minimum payment so that they can charge high interest rates on the balance that is carried. Isn't BNPL a better option?
Tell me how you really feel. Okay. In theory, in practice, from an academic point of view, in theory, if you use it responsibly, yes, because for a tenure less than 6 months, it's expensive, as we mentioned, to carry a balance on your credit card. effectively paying 18% per annum if you're not paying the bill in full by the due date. So you've got to that is whereas BNPL, if you miss a payment, they charge you a fee typically. So you make sure you understand the penalties involved. So for short term, 3, 4, even 6 months sometimes, yes, definitely it could be a better option than using credit cards. Unless the credit card has like a beyond 6 months and the credit card has like a 6, 12, 24 month 0% installment plan that doesn't charge you anything else on top, that then it differs. But in the short term, yeah, I would agree.
Nice. Let's go for the next question. Should I use BNPL to buy an iPhone 13? You think you should watch the previous episode, right? Or a Maybank 12 months installment plan?
Oh, I think this is a very similar kind of concept, right? So
Yeah.
it follows up very nicely from the previous point, but I think it comes down to how long do you want to pay the phone, pay whether an iPhone 13 or whatever else is out there, how long do you want to pay it over for? In this kind of situation, I wouldn't want to pay the iPhone over 3 to 6 months.
Yeah.
If there was a 0% credit card installment, I would use the 12 months because I want to spread that payment out so that I have more cash flow to invest or do other things with. But typically, if I'm doing it, I want to make sure that I have the upfront cash, right? So that I know that I can make sure that I can pay off that the total cost of the phone should it be, right? Should anything happen, I know I can cover it. So in this case, it really is down to your choice in terms of how long you want to pay it for. If it's something you just want to split over 3 to 4 months, then maybe a BNPL play might be optimal. If something longer, then maybe a credit card play might be optimal. If you don't have a credit card, then the answer is quite easy. But I presume from this that you have a credit card. Something you need to watch out for is I know a lot of the resellers are having these easy plans as well. Make sure you take that monthly cost and times the tenure to see how much you're paying in total, because they could be charging you a premium for stretching out that payment. I've noticed that. So
if
watch
they don't
out
say
for that.
it's upfront 0%, no cost.
Correct.
12.4%,
Check out
24
our
months.
episode last week.
Yeah, nice.
For more on it.
That was a very long conversation last week. Yeah. So, next question. I feel very strongly with this as well. I don't see what the problem is with BNPL. It helps spread payments to help me optimize my monthly cash flow. So, what's with all the negativity?
I think a lot of the negativity came about because of supposed predatory marketing, and I think just like the lower KYC, a lot of people just get a bit jumpy around it. And I guess it also, if you're informed with the fact that household debt in Malaysia is very, very high comparatively, I can see where this concern is coming from, right? Because this credit is supposedly catering towards an underserved market, and generally, if you can't get a credit card, there are concerns over your credit worthiness, correct?
Yep.
So that is something to kind of like watch out for and pay attention to. It can be a dangerous. I think that's where people are coming. It's very paternalistic kind of mentality, but at the same time, behavioral science has gotten so good that sometimes we don't even know what we're doing when we're doing purchases. And this is coming from someone who prides myself on being just so good with money. I've sometimes gone down the rabbit hole of spending too much, right? Using credit facilities and learning the hard way not to do that again.
But I mean, I think we've all had experiences like that, or we know people who have gone through pretty harrowing moments like that.
I think the concern with credit is just because it's almost unlimited, right? In some senses, because of the compounding effect. And if you have credit problems, there's AKPK, right? Agency Counseling and Promotion Credit. They're there to help you out with this. So be sure to go and give them a call if you have any issues.
And it's a free service as well. So
yes, if anyone tells you you need to pay for AKPK, they're lying to you or they're trying to scam you.
Remember that scams are pretty crazy these days. Anyway, let's go for the next question. We are told that there are a few more questions left. BNPL makes purchasing easier, and does that make us easier to get into more debt?
Okay, I think I've heard this somewhere, right? And the unfortunate part is that the BNPL players, from what I've read, also believe this because they are selling this to merchants, saying that it increases ticket sizes. That is their selling point to the merchants, right? So there is obviously some behavioral science here that's backing that up. you just got to be responsible. I'm really sorry that I'm putting the burden on you at this point, but you have to be aware of the cost and be aware of your budget and your
Yeah.
affordability and your cash flow, because they're going to try and get whatever they can from you, because it does stimulate spending, but it also optimizes spending. So it's pros and cons here, right?
Yeah.
Again, I think that the concern, the negativity comes from the fact that, like Pang, I think a big thing was, I'm not going to mention the name, but that automatic credit increase with some players came with limited time only, which immediately it sounds like predatory marketing, and towards maybe an uneducated populace could potentially be very dangerous.
Yeah. So then, the whole thing boils down back to the state of financial literacy in Malaysia, right? Which is, we at Ringgit Plus are very, very passionate about. We've talked a lot about financial literacy in the last few years, and we are one of the biggest advocates. And we try to really live up to that, and raise the standards of financial literacy in Malaysia, among Malaysians,
Yeah, I
of course.
mean, yeah, I mean, maybe a Christmas present this year could be a Ringgit Plus Academy to your loved ones.
Well, 5 seats every week.
5 seats
Okay.
anyway. I don't know who's going to spend that much money, but okay, that
Oh,
could be
these are
great.
usually, I mean, these
Oh,
are Ringgit Plus Academy seats are
yes.
HRDF claimable. So if your company
Oh,
is
that's
actually
true.
looking for, to help,
Talk to your company. Talk to your HR.
yeah, get some perks for your employees. These are all HRDF claimable programs. So really, really useful stuff. I know it's 7 hours. It sounds like a lot, but we keep talking about it. But it's okay. Let's go to the next question. From City. From your research on all the BNPLs offered in Malaysia, do you have any recommendations on the best BNPL in the market?
City, I do not have a recommendation for the best BNP player in the market. And that's because um, I think it really depends on what you want. I think if you're someone who uses Grab a lot, obviously Pay Later becomes quite attractive. But a lot of them, A2Me, MyOIOU, Hula, they're all very split and I didn't really look into SPay Later, but the rest of them are all being very upfront about transparent and 0%. So I guess it really depends on the features they're giving you, and watch out for the fees. I think, in my view, the best BNPL player will come down to how transparent they are with the fees, right? And the one thing I've noticed with Grab is that they are being very, very not upfront, but very, very big about transparency and
Mm,
only one fee, right? I think it's a late payment fee if you miss
correct.
it. They're being very, very gung ho about it. I think that kind of marketing um, is important, but also you got to go under the hood. So far, I was not able to find any other additional fees. I think A2Me also is quite straightforward as long as you don't miss your payments, and also the rest of them, Hula and stuff like that. I do not have a recommended facility.
Cool, cool. I think that's fair because there's also like we have a lot of they're also quite tied to the platform as well, so you can't really use GrabPay later with as many merchants as you would like, right? They do offer Pay Later with selected online merchants, but for example, you have other players like S Pay Later from Shopee, right, which is only available on Shopee itself. So it's a little bit hard to make that kind of comparison on as to which one is the best. And like Roshan saying, right, fees are the most important things I think you need to look out for. If they're all offering 0%, you know, not much to compare
Yeah,
after that.
yeah. And it really comes down to the merchants, whether it's available for the product you want, and sometimes it can be the promos that they're giving, right? Sometimes they could be giving you some, well, that one
Oh
is
yeah,
free
for
money,
sure.
right? Promos. They're giving
Yeah.
you promos in particular that say that will discount your purchase or something like that.
Mm,
That's the kind of thing you want to also watch out for. So honestly, there are too many variables here to kind of get into. This is sorry, I can't do your homework for you here in this matter, because it's actually a very personal decision in this part.
yeah.
Just again, as we both mentioned, watch out for the fees.
Cool. I think we are at the last question, right? Yes. Oh no, ending. Okay. Yeah, we've that was the last question. Sorry, I lost count. Okay, thanks a lot for all the questions, guys. There were quite a few number of questions. And I just want to wish Roshan, thanks very much for joining us again.
Pleasure as
We have
always.
long conversations about these kind of topics, and these are very important stuff, right? Like, don't get to debt, credit facilities. They're all pretty interesting to me as well. So thanks a lot for joining us today, everyone. And I hope you guys enjoyed your lunch, and we'll catch you guys next week.